good evening. We've already had our first technical issue for the day. I totally forgot I changed that intro and that now it needs to be updated every week. That used to be just a common intro, so it was not something that had to be shifted around. Uh, I mean, that's kind of the part. I steal the real life fake wizards line all the time. We are the most professional show on the internet. I don't think we've ever gotten through a show without something going wrong. That so far is the smallest one yet, though, so I'm okay with that. Um, and I'm losing my train of thought already. So welcome to everyone. We are, as usual, going to do introductions, and we have our friend Dark Hour, friend of the channel,
Pizza hour.
who is for today in his superhero guise of Pizza Hour.
Yes. I eat all of the pizza. That's all I do.
That's his superpower. He can eat pizza.
I'm dropping the link in the Discord right now, so just give me a second.
Okay. Well, Paul, why don't we start with you instead then?
All right. Now that I have gotten the cough out of the way, that sounds good. My name's Paul. Um, Online, I go by Wolfle HC and have for something like the last 30 years. So, yes, I'm old. I am that old. I got into role playing games right around 1980 with basic and expert. A mix of basic, expert, and AD&D because 10-year-old me had no clue that they were intended to be different games. Um, and my brain was okay. Yeah, we just put this in here and we go. Um, I looked at a few during the 80s. I got involved in Car Wars midway through the 80s, which is actually where the online handle comes from. And that got me into GURPS into 89. And I've been a GURPS proponent and perhaps missionary since then. Um, and yeah, recently picked up Old School Essentials because a publisher that I have um, been following released some OSE stuff that I wanted to support. So that's me.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Tony?
Hey, how are you? I'm Tony. I'm the creator of the realm of Guy and Enoch, post-apocalyptic fantasy, dark fantasy. I started role playing in 1987 with Redbox. I'm still a big fan of the old school role playing, D20 style role playing. I progressed through Shadowrun, GURPS. I played Car Wars as well back in the 80s. That was fun. Um, I was a huge World of Darkness fan for a long, long time through the mid 90s into the 2000s. And that's how I got into becoming a creator.
I guess it does make sense you'd go from World of Darkness to doing a dark horror fantasy. That's
Mm-hmm.
there aren't nearly enough of them in my opinion, but then, my opinion is that there will never be enough of them. So,
Well, it's funny because the entire idea of starting to design a game came from taking those World of Darkness dice pool systems, which were never intended for like a fantasy combat. You know, uh, that was more like the storyteller systems, all straight role playing, and incorporating that into a fantasy type game. That's why I use a dice pool system. Um,
hmm
but
well, thank you for coming.
welcome to.
And Pizza Hour, let's come back to you again.
Yes, I officially dropped the link. So yeah, I'm probably the least gamey person here, but I played several tabletops throughout my time when I was in college. That was kind of how I passed my time with a lot of my friends, and obviously played the D&Ds, the D20 moderns, the Shadowruns, all those. But one that I always loved, and I picked it, and it's kind of the namesake for the episode, was I always gravitated towards one called Mutants and Masterminds. It was a very simplistic system. It was just D20 based. Everything was point buy. You made your character however you wanted. It wasn't luck based, and I always loved that. And basically, went from there, made a bunch of really cool characters over the years that, and I'll talk about them later. That I kind of incorporated in my own like mental comic book world over the years. So, uh,
You're going all fuzzy on us. Can you
am
either get close to your mic or
how about now?
much better?
Oh,
You just have to smooch the mic a little more. That's all.
okay. So, so yeah, I mean, I that was definitely the game that I played the most. There was a couple others. I can't remember all of the ones I played now off the top of my head. It's been quite a while, but I also do enjoy pizza, so I brought pizza with me. I was told that I was supposed to bring a slice. So this is a cheesesteak
I think
pizza.
you might be like the third person ever to actually follow that direction. We should I should have like a prize for people that actually have pizza on the stream.
Well, I'm trying to chew and talk now, so you might as well move on.
That's what I have the mute button for. Okay, so I'm gonna say a quick hello to the chat. Rio is, as always, the first one here. I think there's only ever been one time that he wasn't. So, our super mod Eraserhead, who is amazing. He will have your links while you're talking before you even know you need them.
Nice.
Rachel, who is out to upset the super mod. By
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you who don't know, we have a little competition going. If we can hit 100 watch hours off this video within a week, then all of the name suggestions that get made in the chat, we will vote on next week, because I have a new RAM that needs a name, and it can't be
Rammy
vulgar.
McRam face.
Uh, you can in fact make that suggestion.
I'm gonna make it happen now, and that's what's gonna win. So I got you to 500 subs. I'm gonna get you to 100 watch hours. That's
So yes, I have a RAM. It can't be vulgar because whatever it gets named is going to be on an international registry for Soe sheep, and the registry will not let me do anything vulgar. But other than
just
that,
put stars in there, and then you're
That
good.
makes sense.
yeah, people who have games, books, pets they want immortalized, or if they just want to call it pineapple on pizza and watch Eraserhead explode.
Not sure how many people actually want to watch me eat. It's kind of a disgusting sight, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna be off camera.
Okay. Dadman Walking popped in for a bit. I think he has a stream later on, but he always stops in to say hello, which we appreciate. Legatus came in. Legatus is our newest mod. I realized I needed a backup when Eraser decided he wanted to do something drastic, like be social and go to a concert one day. I
How
mean,
dare he?
I know, right?
Blasphemy.
As Your GM was a guest on this show a few weeks ago, is also in the chat. Welcome. And Yarn Witch Live. Yarny, just so you know, we have 2 superhero genres on this show tonight. So the alleged husband should be delighted. And we have Wormy Spoons, who has just popped in. So very nice to see all of you. I'm sure we will. Yes, he did. He still modded the entire show before he went to the concert because I did not have a backup at that point.
He was just modding from like the line waiting to get in.
That may have been the case. I mean, he's kind of amazing. I have been on streams at like 2 a.m. and he's still there modding for people. I was like, I am
I don't think
convinced.
Eraserhead actually is a person. I think he's an AI. That's just
I
he's
was
like the
gonna say.
automatic AI.
I was gonna say. I think he's just the internet like given form, and he just goes around to he bores easily, so he just goes from stream to stream and mods for everyone. Eraser said he did in fact mod from the line to get in.
I'm not shocked.
Yes, Eraserhead is a machine. So yes, now I have a backup so that if he decides he wants to do something drastic like have a life, I do in fact have a backup now.
Nice.
Legatus is also amazing. I'm stealing him a little bit from the Yarn Witch because
I keep thinking you're saying the goddess. Now I just saw it's Legatus. Okay, I got it.
yes, yes. Okay, so I'm sure we are going to have more people that wander in as time goes on. We usually do. So let's start with Dark Hour.
Mhm.
Tell us about Mutants and Masterminds.
So I briefly explained it already, but I can go into greater details. Would you prefer like me to explain the system first, or the actual like games that I played in it and stuff? Which would you prefer to go first?
It'll probably make more sense for people that haven't played it to hear
Okay.
about the system first,
Okay.
and then the
So
games
like I said,
themselves will probably make
yeah.
more sense.
All right. So like I said earlier, the system is actually a really versatile system that you can use. So everything is point by. So every single level you have of your character, you get what's called 10 power points. All of your powers, your feats, your skills, everything has a certain percentage of like what you have to pay to buy it. So if you want to have like a paragon like Superman, it's going to be really expensive. You could have a lower level one that's maybe like him as a child, like Superboy. Or if you wanted to do maybe a lower level street character, you can have a lot of different capabilities, but they're all not quite as good. So it's a really good system because you can essentially do any other game you want. If you want to have like low level street crime stuff that has no powers and just people running around with guns, you can do it. If you want to have, your Daredevil level heroes that are probably in that game would probably be about level 6 to level 8 in that range, you would essentially have guys that have low grade super strength, maybe, like some cool powers like, like the super hearing. If you wanted to do like high level stuff, you'd go like between 10 and 15. If you wanted to go like Superman level, like Green Lantern, and you could even go up to like cosmic level Galactus kind of stuff if you really wanted to. In fact, that's one of the cool aspects of it that I always loved was a lot of times you start your campaign lower level and everything, and it kind of randomly goes in a direction you want it to because it's like your characters, at least with like D&D and stuff. Sometimes you don't know what your point, how many points you're going to get because they're gifted to you, or it changes per the level. This, it's like a guaranteed. I can steer my character exactly how I want. So if I have a idea of how I want him to evolve over time, and the actual like storylines in it, like almost all the characters that are built into the game, the ones that come pre-prepared into it, there's an equivalency to a real life hero, which is pretty cool. Like they have one called the Centurion, who's clearly Superman, but he's traveled from ancient Rome, but he has all the powers of Superman. Then they have was it like was it Captain Thunder is supposed to be like Shazam. They have all these but you really where the game always is it at its best is when you make up your own. I mean, there was certain games that I played with friends of mine that to this day we joke about. My friend Brian, who I will send this stream to after it's over, because I know he's at work, but he was the single worst DM GM you want to call like ever. He would always steer the game through the most ass backwards way. Like we had to look for a particular. We were looking for some sort of dagger once. It was like a dagger that could open like a secret wall or something stupid that he made up. And we went on this crazy quest to find this thing. It was like 4 sessions long, and we did it. And then he just poofed. He literally said, like, he just poofed in his character, his like explanation character. Like, so you found it. It's like, if you could find it the whole time, why the hell did you just not teleport here? Why'd you send us on this stupid journey? And he had no answer, and he just ended the session. He was like, I don't know why that happened.
Rachel says this is a leadership style she identifies with.
Yeah. Basically, he would just make and but it was really fun. Like a lot of times we would end up in scenario. Like another time, a friend of mine, my friend Dave had created a character. It was basically the Human Torch or like Pyro, and once again, my friend Brian, he in his infinite wisdom, he sent a bunch of trees, like living trees, at him. And I was like, "You just sent kindling after the fucking Human Torch. What is wrong with you?" It's like,
Nice.
And it would, but it would always yield to, so like it'll the thing that I always loved about it though when we would have these sessions is we could do whatever we wanted. We weren't restricted to any timeline. If we wanted to do it in, we didn't have to buy a separate book to do, or a separate version to do medieval, or if we wanted to do space stuff, we just kind of built it in. Probably my favorite one of all time that we did as the motorcycle goes past my house, um, was I created this one, and it was actually, I based it on Planet Hulk. I did like a gladiatorial combat in space where like I got like superpowered beings from around the galaxy, and my friend Brian was playing in this one, and I made up the character for him. He was a actor whose powers changed depending on the scenario. So that because so what I ended up doing was every time a situation arose, I would make up a movie that he was in that was highly specific to that scenario. And like at one point he had to punch his way out of like this locked room with a steel door, and I was like, this is just like your movie, Steel Wall Puncher 14. And it was like every time he just had like a movie that was highly specific to the scenario. But yeah, that's pretty much like the gist of Mutants Masterminds. Very versatile system. It's superhero based, but you can do pretty much anything you want with it.
So you get to spend a lot of time as your secret identity if you want to.
If you want, yeah, if you wanted to do like undercover stuff as a secret identity, you could. Um you could make up like there was ways to make up powers basically, like if you really wanted to. It was like combining up ones, but
Hmm.
really really fun game.
Do you like was there actually I was trying to think of what some of the things you could buy might be. Like is secret identity like an actual skill you can buy or
No, you that's just in your background as a character.
hmm
So like the point by for the most part would be like you start out as just a blank slate. Let's say you wanted to have um super strength. There's like a maximum strength meter, just like you can go up to X number for X number of levels.
hmm
So if you wanted to be really fast, you'd buy like the super speed power and a dexterity boost and this, that, and the other thing. And obviously you get to the feats 1 point per and all these things. And it starts to add up after a while. But if you wanted to, you could just be a feet monkey. You could just be a character that didn't really have powers, just bought a bunch of gear and stuff, be more like Batman.
I was gonna say more like Tony. I was gonna say more like Tony Stark, but yeah.
You can be that too, but that would probably
What's
be
your
actually you would probably have to create like a suit for that. You wouldn't just be because a lot of the stuff that's built into the game is just like a gun or body armor. It's not like a super suit. You have to design the super suit.
what's your superpower? I'm rich.
Basically,
I'm rich and really smart. Oh,
I
and
actually had a
immortal.
we actually did a villain campaign once, and I actually created a villain that he was like a world class physicist who like learned how to like manipulate gravity. He was like the gravity version of Magneto.
Hmm.
And somehow, I don't even remember how the story ended up going this route, but he ended up as the richest man in the world. And then, so at a certain point, I was just basically paying off other villains to do things and just kind of sitting there watching them do it. It got to the point where I didn't even have to play the game anymore. I literally became rich and able to do whatever I wanted.
Um,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
question for you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is being rich something that gets tracked in points in Mutants
No,
Masterminds? Okay.
that was just a currency in the game is kind of just frivolous. It
Okay.
doesn't really matter. It's kind of just what the GM wants you to have.
All right.
Most part, it doesn't really play unless it specifically plays a factor into the game. So, for instance, if we were doing a villain campaign and you needed X number of money for this, they might set up a mission to go rob a bank and you can get X number of
Mm-hmm.
money. But it's really just a frivolous thing. It's however they feel the story would go. You don't have to. There's no
Right.
like superpower. I'm really rich
Okay.
in the game.
I'm trying to
Hmm.
think now. Like, I don't do a lot of superhero games. I'm sort of finicky about what types of superheroes I like, and honestly, I tend to find villains more interesting anyway.
Well, I've always said so. It's weird because a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with this. As a superhero aficionado, Marvel tends to have some of the more interesting heroes, but their villains tend to lack. There's some really good ones in there. Don't get me wrong. Like Magneto's fantastic. Doctor
Mhm.
Doom is really good, but the DC has a tendency to have a lot better villains, and their heroes are a little bit more one dimensional, one note. I do this because it's right. I do this because
Yeah.
I'm, you know, and so it's weird that happens, and then obviously you have independent comic companies that do it a little differently. But those are all individual based. The person owns the IP, so they can do whatever they want. But you know,
Um, so this is interesting. I had a link for Green Ronin because it's the only place I could find it was on their website. But as your GM is saying that they lost the license, which is strange because a huge amount of their website is still Mutants Masterminds.
They lost their they lost their content people too, apparently. 'Cause-
Well, the only thing I can think of is that maybe the website is just now defunct and is just sort of been in limbo and unupdated for.
Right. Nobody's maintaining it.
yeah.
But if that's the
but they
case,
they switched to OnlyFans. That's why.
but if you Google the game, that is the only thing that really comes up. So
Hmm.
it's it's kind of interesting.
So
Um,
does that mean it's an abandonware game at this point, or like
I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some more. I'm gonna have to do some more research now.
serious question? Like if someone wants to get into Mutants and Masterminds, and Green Ronin isn't the place anymore, uh,
What's to stop you?
well, you know,
I
uh,
mean,
like where would you go purchase the game?
I was gonna say I think he's. I think it's more whether or not he can actually still get the game as opposed to him taking over the game.
Yeah. If
um,
someone wanted to, hey, I want to get a copy of this and play it, what do you do?
Hmm,
Um,
weird.
that's an interesting
um,
question. Um, I don't know. Let's see.
I'll, yeah, just
I guess
basically
that's
just. I
homework
wonder if
for
it's.
this show.
I'm looking it up right now.
well, I was gonna say actually, Eraser, can you take a look around and see if you can find whether or not the game is still accessible? I'm sort of wondering too. I kind of want to look on the actual Ronin
You can still
website.
buy it. I think but it looks like they only sell the PDFs now. I don't see any physical copies anymore. Oh no, here we go. If you go far enough down, sorry, I was just the top was all the PDFs.
So
Yeah, it still exists,
maybe it's a case of no new product.
possibly.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
so they
wait,
have
what was
they
the
have
exact thing that they lost the license to Mutants and Mass? That's what was said.
yeah.
Hmm.
So this says
Yeah, it's
Mutants
still
and
appearing on there.
Masterminds Astonishing Adventures is on the Green Ronin store. It's a grand total of 22 pages, but it doesn't tell me when
Oh,
it was made.
as your GM said that they lost license for the DC game, not for Mutants and Masterminds.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think what it
Oh,
was, if I
okay.
recall correctly, they had a DC game. It was a
Okay.
DC RPG or something like that. I think
Okay.
Mutants and Masterminds was made because they lost that. Now it's making sense what's being said. I believe that it was made after the fact because they had the system, but not the game anymore. Or maybe it was that the DC game was just a variation of Mutants and Masterminds. It's one of those two. Because I think Mutants and
Okay.
Masterminds it must predate because I played it in college, so it must predate 2006. So it's probably about like 2004, three, somewhere in that range is when it came out. Because it was only in its second edition when we played, and that was about. So you figure that it was every these games tend to be every 5, 6, 7 years they come out with a new edition. So probably in that 2002 to 2005 range was when it would have been. And so yeah, whenever the DC one came out, would have been if it came out after that, it would have been that they just made a variation of the game. Let me look that up.
Yeah, I I thought for a minute I'd really goof though. I was like, I looked this up. I like always research this so I can get the right links and um hello to Comics Dad. Welcome.
Okay, so I found it. It's right here. So Mutants Masterminds was 2002,
Mhm.
and then DC Adventures, which was based on it, the system was based on it, came out in 2010.
Mhm.
And it looks like it was there specifically to coincide with the New 52 stuff. Basically, that was when they started doing it.
Got it. Okay. Now we are less, well, I at least am less confused about this matter. Still confused about lots of other things, but this in particular we're good on now. Does anyone from the panel or the chat have any questions?
Hmm.
Huh. As your GM says, it had really good Alex Ross cover and some Jim Lee art inside.
I have actually multiple Jim Lee signed and graded comics somewhere in my room here. So
I was
Jim
gonna
Lee
say,
is one of the top 5 artists ever. So
um, yeah, I was kind of thinking that, like, being the comics guy,
hold on.
are they easily accessible, or do you have them like
I think I know exactly where they are. Give me like
you realize you have to turn your camera back on because now we
yeah.
can't see them.
I mean, I'm done eating, so I can turn it back on. Just me.
Dark Hour is somewhat famous for, someone mentioning a really obscure comic and he's like, "Here it is." He just pulls it off his
Nice.
shelf like nothing. Like
Yeah.
he knew ahead of
Well, no,
time somebody else.
these ones are put away somewhere because they're graded, so they're not just random. Just give me a minute. I could probably find them.
Well, in the meantime, anyone else have questions, comments? Dadman Walking, yes, that is this year's crop of sheep and goats. I have a friend who is a professional photographer who comes by once a year, and I get to keep a certain percentage of her pictures if she can use the rest of them for her work. And I do want to go back a little bit because I forgot to do this at the beginning because I'm a bad person. Friend of the channel, Jacob Ironsides, is still in the last few weeks of his GoFundMe to help his family relocate. Jacob is an amazing guy. He is very kind and just wonderful all round. Um, and they have some kind of medical issues in his family, which is making the relocation difficult.
Mm.
If you have not already donated, if you can throw $5 or so his way, they have to move the end of May, which means he'll have to close out the GoFundMe in a couple of weeks in order to access whatever they need in order to make reservations for trucks and all that good sort of stuff. Um, if you have already donated, if you can please just share it around so the word gets spread, that would be great. Um, it's also a good reminder for me. I did donate once already, but I am going to donate again once I get back on my multi state trip tomorrow and have made sure I have not crashed and died in the process.
So
Um,
while I was looking, I also found I bought this recently. So this is Alex Ross style artwork. This is a graphic novel, but he does these really like I'm not even sure what I would call the term. They're just it's very distinctive. It almost looks surreal a lot of times when he does it. So that's his art style. And then I
it
have these,
looks
which are like, hmm?
it looks very layered. It's kind of interesting in that.
It almost looks like a painting a lot of
Yeah.
times. And then I have these ones like you'll recognize the. I'm trying to not catch too much of the light from the monitor there, but like that's Jim Lee. He's known for that specific version of the X-Men. He pretty much invented the ones that everyone thinks of. Um, so yeah, if they were using those two for the artwork, that's pretty fucking awesome.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's what I meant when I was saying that's a much better description than I had. When you paint over it, paint tends to come in layers, and
Yeah,
that really shows through in that.
pizza.
Um,
Nice.
I should have asked him to do one giant signature across all the covers. Now they are truly a set.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We are going to go on to GURPS. Okay, I can never remember because there's GURPS Powers and there's GURPS Supers, and we had so many discussions about both of them.
Well,
I'm having a momentary brain spaz.
let me put it this way: I've used powers more than I've used supers.
I think
Um,
most people have. I
but
just get confused
well,
as to
so
which is
here's
which.
here's the thing, and this is where, um, well, we're going to go into a little bit more of Paul's background. Paul kind of has the whole "gotta get them all" thing as far as GURPS books goes. So I've got somewhere between 8 and 12 shelf feet of GURPS third edition books, and that's like almost all paperback. I've got multiple copies of a lot of this stuff, and then I've got a much smaller selection of the GURPS fourth edition, and that's largely because from about 2007 to 2017, I just wasn't doing role-playing games. Something about having rebellious teen stepdaughters ate up a lot of time. So, anyway, they are no longer teenagers. And anyway, I got back into role playing back in about 2017. But I actually found and I'm going to, because I have ADHD, we're going to kind of do a little bit of wandering here. Comment earlier about a new edition every 5 years. Well, I guess GURPS is weird that way. Third edition, first two editions were very fast, but third edition came out in '86 and was current up through 2004. Fourth edition has been out since 2004 and has averaged a new release a month since then. So you've got a lot of material.
Yeah.
You got a lot of material. Now, GURPS Supers is kind of focused on 4-color gaming. I'm less pleased with Supers than I am with Powers. And part of that is because I think Supers is missing some of the key points that you really have to kind of base a game on if you want to effectively do 4-color role-playing using GURPS. And it absolutely can. A friend of mine has been running 4-color or uber high-power games for over a decade. But one of the things that's common in the comics, at least, is that you have characters on the same side with wildly different levels of power. You've got Robin, but you've also got Superman. You've got
You have Thor versus Hawkeye.
Right. And that doesn't mean Hawkeye doesn't contribute, but it kind of breaks one of the typical fundamental assumptions of GURPS. And because GURPS, like Mutants and Masterminds, is point buy, normally how character creation goes is everyone gets a point budget, and you get some ground rules. Okay, this is in the game. This isn't in the game. This is this is an option. This one isn't. If you want to do this, here's how you approach it. That type of stuff. But if you're going to do a 4-color game, that doesn't fit. Because if you try and build Thor on Hawkeye's point budget, you will fail. Like Thor has a lot more power. He's a much more expensive character. But there are some things that Thor just isn't as good at as Hawkeye. And I'm speaking strictly from the cinematic universe, since I don't have quite the 4-color background that maybe I should for this. But in the cinematic universe, Thor's not great on stealth.
No, not even close.
No, not at all.
So,
Or
Thor,
tact.
subtle.
Or tact in any way, shape, or form.
No, he's
Thor,
good with
subtle.
tact. He's just good with tact based on 750 years ago tact. It's a very different tact, or probably even more, probably
Yeah,
like 1,000 years ago.
yeah, and that's but building to a concept ends up being a lot more important and a lot more appropriate. Okay, what's your character concept? All right, and the way my friend handles it when he's starting a game is each prospective player is asked for, okay, give me 3 character concepts. Now, give me a paragraph on each of them, and we'll figure out based from there. And he actually does his, and it's funny. I kind of stumbled on this myself. I don't do character builds as homework. It's in every case it's a conversation between me and the player. It's not a build whatever you're going to build and bring it back to me. It's a hey, we're going to have a conversation, and part of the reason I do that is I don't do a great job building campaign documentation. Like that is not my strong suit. But if I've got a player that says, hey, I want to do X, I want to be a barbarian from the wilds. Well, if they tell me that, I say, okay, here's where you're from. This is what makes sense, and we'll go from there. That actually happened in my, what I'm currently running is actually Dungeon Fantasy as opposed to super powered, though with some of the shenanigans they get up to, maybe they're super power level. I'm not sure. But, I know where to fit it into the campaign. And that, actually speaking to a couple of authors, is actually how they usually approach character builds too. Sorry, I've got cats running around in the background. But with powers or with supers, it's important to be able to have that variability between the characters. The other thing that is usually key for color comics is that characters essentially have some plot armor or something new all of a sudden develops that there's been no indication of previously. And the way that you do that in GURPS is with something called impulse points. Basically, that's your plot protection. And Supers doesn't bring any of that in. Powers didn't do the impulse points, but that came out in Power Ups 5, Impulse 5. In any case, it is possible to run high-powered and super-powered games. Personally, the super-powered character I came up with was more along the lines of, or that I am most a fan of, was more along the lines of Hawkeye. Some martial arts guy that actually, because of his martial arts, was, a couple of 100 years old and drove around Southern California in a yard work truck, with a bunch of sticks in the back. No one notices these guys, especially if they're darker colored skin. Sorry, that probably edges a little where I should be.
You're slowly getting into that territory we were told not to before the show started.
Anyway,
I was told no talk of vegan politicians.
Right. So anyway, yes, he was a guy that would be essentially invisible to most people in Southern California at the time the game was set. But it was a lot of fun building that character because he didn't have any superpowers, but because of the martial arts stuff, or maybe his superpowers were all martial arts players. In any case, because at the point buy, I was able to build what I wanted. Now, the book Powers is really interesting because what it does is it basically presents a way to theme different abilities. Okay, I want to be the Human Torch. Well, what can the Human Torch do? Well, he can burn things, but he can also fly. Okay, and he can essentially make fire shields. Well, basically it's a way to unify those and be able to build all kinds of stuff. One of the places that I actually saw Powers used was with an Undyne background for a game that was going to be run. Well, it was basically someone set up a game to run Ruins of Aslan, the Pathfinder adventure path, using GURPS, and they built their Undynes to have water power, which basically opened up for those characters all kinds of things that just had to be water flavored. I'm kind of sad that game never actually launched. But yeah, so that's.
Can I just ask you to clarify a little bit? So I know GURPS is points based. So does the GM just assign a certain number of points
A
based
lot of the
on
time,
how strong they want the superheroes to be?
yes, or typically. But if we're going with superheroes, personally, the approach I would take is let's build concepts, and we'll figure out how many points these characters are. Christopher R. Rice's Discord, and he's actually the guy that has been running superpowered games for well over a decade. He's had some characters in play, and let me back up, give you some scale. Typical team action hero is probably going to be 150 to 250 points. He's had characters in play that are well over 100,000 points.
I mean, just the time it would take to build that character seems insane.
There are
If
shortcuts.
if there's anything on Mutants and Masterminds, no, you kind of already so the point buys, you kind of already know what they're going to be ahead of time. I need them to run X speed, so it's going to cost this many anyway.
Yeah, there are some things that are really easy, and I have to say that Christopher tends to be excellent with doing very fast power builds.
Yeah, I've seen somewhere, especially with GURPS, where it's like, an hour and a half later, you're still trying to figure out where all these points go. So that's good. That's good that you're not doing it because that was one of the things that turned me off about it.
Well, and
that it just like, I don't want to sit here for 3 hours.
You don't want to need the spreadsheet for 3 hours and still be confused about where you are and where you're going.
Right. I want to sit down and play.
Right. And that is, and bluntly, that's one of the, I would say, big issues that people have with getting into GURPS is bluntly, analysis paralysis is a very real thing.
Well, how could you do it? Say you were at Convention, right? You got 3 hours to play. You're going to spend that all making your character?
No.
Probably not, right?
No. But, and, I'm supposed to be here talking about powers, but I'm actually going to reference a book called Delvers to Grow. It is not for colored heroes. It's dungeon fantasy. It's D&D-esque gaming. In 2017, Steve Jackson Games released Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game. It's basically a version of GURPS tuned for running dungeon crawls. Its suggested starting point value is about 250 points. from a number of the authors who have written for both it and 5e. The understanding I have is that 250 points plays about like 6th through 10th level in 5th edition D&D. Time to build for a new player a 250 point character is probably 3 hours, which means you decide you want to sit down and you're probably playing in 2 weeks or 3 if you get that far. That's a massive hurdle. That's a massive speed bump. Delvers to Grow addresses that. It was written by Kiva Delix under the name Kevin Smith. It was published by Gaming Ballistic. And it cuts down a character build into 6 choices. You pick a couple of disadvantaged packages. One of my favorite ones for that is Dark Knight. So Tony, if I tell you tell you a character is a Dark Knight, what are you thinking? How does that character act?
How does a Dark Knight character act?
Yeah.
We're talking fantasy.
Yep.
I mean,
sorry, Dark Knight more of Batman. Think Batman.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we're definitely going to go with stealth, and we're definitely going to go with like a lot of tech. I want hacking. I want to be able to climb. I want to be able to rappel down buildings.
Okay. Now this is a disadvantaged package, so it actually describes how the character's approach to life.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he's got a strict code of behavior.
Sure. Absolutely.
And he makes sure that the people that he's fighting go down.
Okay.
So like chaotic good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, chaotic good, but there are some very specific. So it's called Dark Knight. There's like a paragraph, tells you in plain English what this means, and then...
Right, you're not the Punisher. You're...
And then the game mechanic labels for that. But basically everything in the character build is broken down like that. I consistently, I'll go back to the late alpha, early beta. I took 3 copies of this to a game store. Sat down. 90 minutes later, we had 6 characters. 3 of the players never touched a role-playing game before. 2 had played 5th edition. 1 had played GURPS. 90 minutes later, I hadn't read the manuscript myself. We had 6 characters, averaged 15 minutes apiece.
Okay.
Ended up running that game for the next year and a half, something like that. Consistently, that book, 15 minutes to get a character because it's down to six choices. Strong, fast. Go ahead. Yeah. That's the type of... If you're not into the character build metagame, that's what players want. They don't want to spend 3 sessions talking about the game. They want to play.
Of course. You want to sit down and play.
You want to sit down and play. They don't want to talk about playing. They want to play. And
right. I mean, if you could grab a random person walking through a game store and sit them in a chair and be like, 20 minutes later, we're playing. That's victory. That's success.
Yeah.
That's not like, hey, go download this book and read these 150 pages of it. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be able to play a game session.
Yeah.
That's no good. Nobody wants that. I don't want that.
I enjoy the character build metagame. At the same time, I don't want it to be something I do instead of playing.
Well, I mean, if you want it to be more detailed, you can certainly do that, but there has to be a baseline to start with, and there has to be a quick start. Because if there's no quick start, then it's always a long start, and I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you right now, me as a player, not going to do it.
Yeah,
I do
not gonna do it.
not have the time for that.
Learning curve is definitely important to any
Yeah.
game success rate. You need to at least have some sort of ability to get people into it quick enough that they want to learn more.
Right.
That's the basic version. So.
Right.
Well, this
Well,
is
right.
why.
I mean, that's why when we did our play testing, like we grabbed random people. My girlfriend never played an RPG in her life. Didn't tell her anything. Nothing. Literally nothing. Did not tell her a word about it. Sat her in a chair and was like, "Here's the character the pre-made character that I made for you." And now we go.
Yeah.
Add the numbers up and roll dice. You know what I mean? Like, if it's more complicated than that, you're going to lose everybody that's,
Yep.
You know,
Uh,
A, doesn't have the time or is self-conscious about the fact that they don't know how to play.
I have a
That's
couple of
bad.
games I like
did
to run.
Eraserhead get the link for Delvers to Grow in? Because I think that's important.
I don't know, but I bet if you give him a couple of minutes.
Okay. It's one of the ones I sent you beforehand because that book really makes a difference. Basically, it gives you Duplo-sized blocks that allow you to still build a customized character, and it leverages the game mastery of someone who is very good at building characters to avoid the noob traps. And every game's got noob traps. Every game's got noob traps.
I'm sorry, which one was it again? There are a bunch here.
Delvers to Grow. It'd be one of the gaming ballistic links.
I am not finding it.
So that kind of brings me to a kind of a side point. I think that in order for us to grow as an industry, that we need to capture more of the what I like to call gamer adjacent folks.
Yep.
And get them into a game, right? Because they might like Lord of the Rings, and they might like video games, and they might like anime, and they might like manga, or they might like any of those things, right? That's all gamer adjacent. Those people could be role-playing fans, right? But they're not, right?
Right.
So we have to make it easy for them to sit down and play and not feel like I'm an idiot because, everybody else at the table knows what they're doing and I don't.
Yep.
Yeah. So the real life fake wizard has been on this channel a couple of times actually, talking a lot about the need to draw in new players. He said, there's too many games getting developed that the description is here's how it's like 5e. And he said our biggest market is people that have never played anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm currently editing the game that he worked on, which is called Pretend, and is really designed kind of like you're talking about to just be able to jump in. And
I love those people. I love those brand new people. They don't have bad habits. They don't have preconceived notions. They can sit down and I can say like, this is this and this is this. And they're like, oh, okay. Because they don't know any better. Right. So they can.
Yeah. My best player at that game store game was someone who had never played and was functionally illiterate.
Oh.
Was it me?
No.
Oh.
I mean, okay.
I mean, Goat has seen my script.
I
I may not actually know how to read and write if you look at some of my script.
He is semi-literate, but he was my best player because he did not have the preconceptions.
So when we ran our last play session, our playtest session, we had anticipated that there would be players there that they weren't, right? So my girlfriend Jess came. This was her third session ever. It was third, not just like not of the game, of any RPG ever, right? So obviously she still needs a little bit of help. We sat down. My editor was one of the other players. Obviously he knows. He's the editor. Of course he knows everything about it. His friend TJ, who we had met in the past, never played before, and then a random guy who was just walking by. We needed a fourth. And he was like, my daughter is playing 5e, but she doesn't want me to play in her game because, she's a teenage girl and she doesn't want to play games with her dad. And we're like, okay, that's fine. And he's like, can I sit down and play? And I literally just handed him a character sheet and he was like, I'll explain it while we go. And he was like, okay, that makes sense. Let's go. Here's a set of dice and we go. Like, I mean,
so
is this the
Fast
book you were
Delvers
talking about?
is the worked example for
Paul, is this the book you were talking about?
that is so. There's Delvers to Grow, the main book, which is the character, which is here's the tools for building a character.
Mhm.
Delvers to Grow Fast Delvers is the one about the stealthy characters, the ones that are dexterous.
Okay, so we need the non-fast version.
I PM'd it to you in Discord.
Oh,
I couldn't figure out how to send something in chat here in
oh, there's
here.
a private chat. Yeah, like I said,
Okay.
I turned Discord off because otherwise it dings in my ear constantly.
Otherwise, it dings and makes life awful. Okay. No, no. Oh, got to click in the. There we go.
Just to touch on the the learning curve thing. So I'm sure you guys have gone to like gaming conventions before. I used to go to PAX, both PAX
Mhm.
East and PAX Unplugged, and that was a surefire way for me to not be interested in your game, whether it be a video game or a board game, a tabletop, whatever it may be. If I'm sitting there for 5 minutes and I've yet to start doing something and you're
Right.
still explaining, I'm not gonna buy your
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And
I've,
Yeah,
I've
only
got.
so much
I
time.
don't mind learning more later. That's fine, learning more about the game, but you need to have some sort of basic thing that I can do immediately to be like, okay, I'm interested. You know.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, especially at a con, I mean, I only have so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got 2.5 days here, and I want to get as much in as I can. So I don't want to sit here for half an hour and listen to you tell me about game mechanics. I've been playing games for 30 years.
Yeah.
Give me a character sheet and let's go.
Let's go.
The problem is that most of those uh, they used to label different sessions for like beginners and
Hmm.
experienced, and I don't think they do that at a lot of conventions now. And it's really a problem because
PAX still does, but
there's a
Yeah.
there's a big difference between I've been playing for 35 years, someone else has never played a game, but they have to do the spiel as if they don't know anything because
Right.
someone in that one person in that group might not know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, you always have to do that with anything. I mean, I'm reading stuff that I wrote, right? First 3 pages of a book, right? And it has to be so remedial. It has to, my 9-year-old son should be able to read it and figure out what's going on. My girlfriend, who never played a game, should be able to read it. But I have to tell you what role playing is. I have to tell you what dice are. I have to tell you briefly, not like over 27 pages. Like these are dice. You roll them. This is what it means, and moving on. Because again, the world's attention span is getting shorter.
Hmm.
I used to buy a book and spend a week sitting in my bedroom as a kid reading it. I don't have time for that anymore, right? I don't. I have
Yeah.
stuff to do. I have kids and work, and
I've
Yeah,
like
never completed a book in my life.
realistically
most
though,
people won't. Readers don't play, and players don't read.
Mhm.
I so for the record, I do both.
Well, you are then you are a unicorn because
Goes both ways. Damn it, she goes both ways.
I suppose that's not really fair. I don't get to play much very often because there aren't enough game masters. So I
yeah.
guess I
That is
read.
a huge problem with gaming. Actually, everyone wants to play
Uh-huh.
the character, and a lot of people don't want to write
Uh-huh.
the session. That is actually a big problem.
That's a
See,
huge problem.
I love writing the sessions. So I write for a living and I edit for a living, which means that no matter how crunchy the game is, I don't mind sitting down and making up 10 different characters based on people's ideas.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't find it nearly as boring as everyone else does.
So I'm like 37 pages into intro scenario right now. You should be able to run that scenario with players, pre-made characters, having not read the rules. They will be explained to you as you run it. That roll this and it does this, and roll this and it does this. You don't need the other 50 pages of things that you're not going to do. If I need you to roll a dice pool and tell me how many successes you got, there's a little chart that tells you what your success is based on it. But you don't need to know any more than that because this is only what's relevant to you right now.
And see, so despite my best attempts, this tends to come up. This is one of the things I really hate about 5e. It used to be, with the early versions of Dungeons and Dragons, everyone would buy the books and everyone would read the books.
Mhm.
There was a player's guide and a DM guide for a reason, because the players were going to read the player's guide, and the DM was probably going to read both of them.
Of course,
Uh,
yeah.
and nowadays, one of the reasons that sales aren't where they'd like them to be is that game masters are the only ones buying books.
Mhm.
Nobody's reading the stuff otherwise. And I don't know if that's 5e playing into the short attention span, or if that's the short attention span causing this dumbing down of gaming.
It's a little bit of both, I think, and again, the attention span in society across the board is getting shorter. I actually just funny. We just talked about doing a series of 1 minute videos about game mechanics. 1 minute. It's 1 minute. That's all we had to do. Make a series of them. This is what this is. 60
Um,
seconds of, and that's all you need to know for right now.
yep.
That would
Index
make
them
But
all together. And if there's
that
a
would
thing
make me
that you need to
cry.
know, click on the video. And in 1 minute, it will tell you exactly what you need.
That would
and
make
that's
me
And that's
cry.
the attention span.
But the
that is,
problem is that the attention span will continue to get shorter if we don't. I mean, it's
push.
like kids. It's like kids in school. Kids in school develop longer attention spans, or did develop longer attention spans, because the structure of the school system made them develop longer attention spans, and it doesn't do that now. And the
No.
more we allow them to not push the envelope, the shorter our attention spans will get.
Yeah.
Well, I
One
mean,
of the
we can,
reasons I write nonfiction instead of fiction is that I get told regularly I need to dumb down my writing because I use too many big words, and I won't do it.
yeah. Well, I mean, do we fight that battle and lose, or do we figure out a different way to proceed forward? Because I
Or
feel like if we try to fight that battle, we just lose. If we just say, here's 250-page rule books, please read them. I mean, I bought my son a whole bunch of books. He's 14, my oldest son. Actually, he just turned 14 yesterday. He has yet to read any of them, not a single one.
Huh,
yeah.
you bought him the wrong books in my mind.
I bought him a bunch of Kickstarters, and he's got kids on bikes too, right? Think he's ever going to read it? Probably not.
Yeah.
And that's easy. That's an easy one to get through. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say
I don't
that's
think it's a matter. I don't think it's a matter of so. There's a lady I watch called the No Nonsense Editor, and
mhm,
she did a whole series on the fact that the writing industry is not making material for men and boys anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the issues that we're running into with role playing games too, is that we're moving away from a lot of the things that men and boys find interesting in role playing games too.
of course.
And I'm not going any further along that line, or I'll break my own rule. But
Right. Right.
but
But
she
the
talks
audience
about
is not being served. The audience is not being served with content that they're interested in.
Well, right,
Therefore, they will not engage.
of
but
course.
she talked about the fact that she had a friend who wrote a whole series of books specifically for his sons, and he tried to have them published, and they couldn't get published because, and they said specifically, we're not publishing books that are aimed at this kind of audience anymore. And then they wonder why there are less and less boys reading, because there are less and less books. And then they say, well, we're not going to publish the books because less boys are reading. Well, the less boys are reading because there are less books.
It's a
Echo
downward spiral.
Chamberlain did a video on that a while back, actually, where he looked at the publishing companies and how they're very top heavy with female uh, writers, editors, all the way up to the top, all the way up to the publishing, like the people who make the publishing presidents, I guess, of the publishing companies, and that plays right into what you're saying, actually. And I wouldn't be shocked if it trickles down everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in general, if you look at and I don't want to stereotype anybody, but the genres of things that young men and boys um, tend to enjoy fantasy and sci-fi, and you know what I mean. These are things that there's a reason why Marvel movies make $1 billion, and it's because you know what I mean.
But
But I
but
don't
there's a
think that
reason that the current Marvel movies aren't making $1 billion,
well, right,
because
because
they're moving away from all of the things that made them $1 billion to start with.
Hmm.
right. And again, I don't want to be sexist at all, but my 12-year-old daughter has absolutely no interest in any of this. None whatsoever. No matter what you say to her, she's not going to be into sci-fi and fantasy, and that's just not what she likes. So you have to either give her something that she likes or go back to marketing it to the people who might actually want it.
And I don't disagree with any of that. What I disagree with is um, the idea that when you have someone that likes gaming, that we shouldn't push
No, we
them
absolutely should.
to work a little harder. I mean, the original D&D books were like 40 pages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were great. And then we went to 140 pages, and those were great. I mean, I agree that the longer, like, 5th edition books aren't like, they're not doing well, and people aren't buying them because they're not interesting.
No.
My point is that we need things that are interesting and will keep their attention engaged, as opposed to just saying they have no attention and therefore
Hmm.
we're going to do everything in 20 seconds.
Look,
Well,
I'll just say it. Well, we're dancing around the topic. There's the four B's. There's blades. There's bullets. There's bombs, and there's boobs. Get them inside of the thing, whatever it is, and boys will buy the game. They'll buy the book. They'll buy. Those are the
well,
things
also,
that kids like.
as somebody with I mean, I have three kids, right? They're 14, 12, and 9, right?
Mhm.
We're treating a 14-year-old like they're 5, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
My
exactly.
son's about to be a
You have to
freshman in high
you
school.
have to evolve the
Like,
content as they go along.
right. I mean, we can't, we can't write for a 14-year-old as if they're an elementary school child. This
Right.
kid's 2 years away from driving a car. I mean, he can handle some gore and a little bit of maybe edgy content. And that's what he wants, but we don't give it to him because the PC police have told us that we can't give that to kids. He's not a child. He's a quasi adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is it? 70 years ago, he'd be gearing up to be drafted to go fight in a war. Like
Well,
you
right. I
can't
mean,
treat him.
the
Yeah.
kid's 5'7" and 130 pounds. He's not a child.
There's
Bigger than me.
anyone familiar with Bo Burnham?
Yeah.
Yeah, the comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of my favorite lines in his song says something to the effect of when he was 27, my grandfather fought in Vietnam. When I was 27, I built a birdhouse with my mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it
So
it does go back, and I mean, it's not quite as deep as this, but it does go back to the whole, like, hard times create hard men,
Yeah.
hard men create soft times create. We're in that kind of.
yeah.
We had a bit of a uptick in that in, like, the early 2000s when I was graduating high school. You had, because we were going back to war and stuff. There was a man up period. We're kind of this now. The generation is coming out, like, it's not that really anymore. So, and we've gotten to the PC police, like was mentioned. So
Mm-hmm.
you end up with games that are watered down. You end up with books that are watered down. You end up, and something will spark, and hopefully, it's a balancing act. It's just the balancing act is getting further. The pendulum is swinging further and further as time goes along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I guess
So
I guess maybe it's my natural resistance to. I mean, I'm old, so my resistance to change probably plays a certain amount in it. But like I said, I don't mind things being short. My whole thing is,
yeah.
write until you're done and then shut up.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but it does bother me to dumb things down for people.
yeah.
Yes, stuff sells
well,
better,
absolutely.
but you know,
Well, when it
books
comes
will.
to you mentioned the old school D&D books being 40 pages. I actually had a conversation with Frank Menser about that, about how they purposely they wrote it for 10th graders, right? So
Hmm.
that's what it was, but
Which
someone about 16 years old. But are we now writing for sub adults? Are we trying to write for kids? Because I mean,
yeah.
I've read a lot of newer stuff that I'm like, I mean, this is like this for like a fifth grader. This is you know what I mean? Like, I'm a grown man. Like, can you write for me, please? I mean, I have a
Yeah,
No,
vocabulary.
there are a lot of discussions too about young adult and whether or not it's actually young adult or whether it's made for teenagers or it's supposed to technically be for teenagers, but because it's labeled young adult, they want it more and more what they call spicy because it's actually lonely housewives that are reading this stuff.
Um, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, get your own genre.
Well, I mean, there is also a degree of, I don't remember who said it, but you can evolve. Like, that's one of the things that always, as I came up in the comics world, like, in the 90s reading it, it got older with me, you know, and then it, then when they try to restart something, it's like, it's hard for someone who's been involved with it for a while to go back and read something new, because they kind of tend to have to start a
Right.
little bit more, bare bones. And so it is, and tends to be dumbed down because they're trying to attract new readers. Um,
Hmm.
and being in this sphere, I've done my share of making fun of shit. I do it all the time, but at the same time, I understand that needs to exist. You need to have those introductory level things. Like, there's like, Disney sometimes does decent stuff with their IPs on the child level in terms of getting them introduced. Like, there's a show that is called Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and I've seen it on Disney Plus, and it's a cute little version of Spider-Man that has nothing to really, it really doesn't have anything to do with the other versions. It's not like a continuation of that story. It's one little self-contained thing. It's got some aspects of which they didn't change, but I understand what it's for. I get what it's there for. And that needs to exist in games as well. You need to have that Spidey and His Amazing Friends, or your young Jedi or whatever. You have to have that for the new players. And then
Yep.
you have to have, your advanced, but you have to keep evolving the game over here. And then you create sort of an artificial disconnect, unfortunately, because now you have the intro level people have so much more to catch up on.
Hmm.
So that can be a problem sometimes.
Well, I'm forced. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not forced, but I'm kind of forced to write um, kind of a more vanilla setting because I can't put a lot of content into it because then I have to label it and warn people and blah blah blah. So I included a whole section about tone, right? Tone, just graphic violence, sexual content, offensive language, right?
Mhm.
I didn't include any offensive language in any product because I don't want to deal with that. But I got to tell the people playing that, like, it's okay. It actually is perfectly okay if you want to inject that yourself as an adult. I just can't do it these days for you because, I mean, I don't need angry parents yelling at me because their middle schooler got suspended because, you know, of whatever. I don't need that in my life. Um,
I have yet to even get through a game of Tune without somebody, throwing out an F bomb. So we've gotten way off topic. I apologize, Paul.
Well, no, I think it. I think the what got us on this major tangent is actually worth mentioning. A number of years ago, I worked for a large information security company. The manual for our product was over 1,000 pages. And then we had product managers and various other people questioning why customers didn't know how to use the product.
of course.
You have your book has rolled a 20 and the customer is now unconscious. What do you mean, why don't they know how to use the product?
Right.
You have
Well, of
beat them
course.
over the head with it. And, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something we did that was very effective was we started from support making shorts.
Mm-hmm.
1 minute or shorter things. Hey, if you want to do X, here's how you do it. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Link to the relevant place in the manual, but give them the answer. Make the answer available. And then maybe they'll take a look. But if you don't give someone a way to find what they're looking for, if you don't present something in the time or attention budget they have, you've lost the sale. You've lost the user. You've
Mm-hmm.
lost the reader. And and,
Absolutely.
and I think there is something to be said for making sure that something is scoped for the budget, but that it also includes a hook to, hey, If you want some more details, here's where and how you get them.
Hmm.
All I can think of is the last job I held in the real world. Um, I was handed the policies and procedures manual, and it was like 600 pages.
Uh huh.
Yep.
And it took me several days to get through.
Uh
And
huh.
then I said, I have a question about this one section in security.
Hmm.
And she had no idea what I was talking about. And I said, it's on such and such a page. It has, it says right here. And I read it off to her. And she said, wait a minute. Did you read that?
Did you actually read it? Right.
And
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I have to sign a paper saying I read it.
I
And
had
she's
to
like,
sign a
and she's,
paper saying I read it and I will abide by it. You bet I read it.
and she said, I've worked for this company for, I think it was like 17 years. She's like, we employ like X number of hundred people. She's like, nobody's ever read it before.
I actually have a similar story
I was like,
where I applied
and
for a job. Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say the worst part was they had no idea that this like massive security thing that they put in their policies and procedures manual existed, and they did not know how to actually implement it.
Hmm. So I had applied for a job and I went in, and basically the woman who was supposed to give me like one thing, it was like I had done like the online application. I had to go in like fill like a full thing, and the woman was also new who was giving it to me. She gave me like um what is it, the orientation like quiz and stuff, and I was like, and I just sat there, I had the packet, I did it, I filled it out, I handed it in, I handed it to the manager, and he looked at it and he was like, wait a minute, why'd you get this? All the answers were right. And he's like, how'd you do this? I was like, I mean, you gave me a booklet with all of your company's policies in it. I read the parts that were relevant and I wrote down the thing. Like, it's not hard. And he was like shocked. Apparently no one ever thinks to look at the actual, they just answer the questions randomly, I guess. I don't know.
So I worked in the high-end appliance sales business for a long time, right? Like for like 15 years. And the trend has been that appliances don't come with manuals anymore. You know why? Because nobody reads them. So they come with a card that links you to their YouTube channel that answers any questions that you might have about the functionality of your appliance. And it actually cut down on the number of returns and service calls because people could just go click, oh, hey, that's why it's making that sound.
And the next
But
thing that will happen is there will be a Q code, and someone will just scan it with their phone, and it will take them to the YouTube because heaven forbid we actually
that
type something in.
Right. No, it does.
that actually is what happened when we got some replacement appliances, and that to me was personally really aggravating. I have a hard time watching YouTube. I have a hard time watching YouTube.
You know, that's what we're on right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know,
But he
I
doesn't
know.
have to. He doesn't have to watch it. He just has to
I'm
Okay.
talk.
I'm not watching it though, and that's the thing with the way my brain works. I have an easier time reading a 30-page manual than I have watching a 30-minute instructional video,
Oh, no, these were like 3 minutes, 3 minute videos.
or
They were,
or
Yeah.
or or even than a 3 minute. I'm serious, even than a 3 minute, because I have a much easier time finding when I've missed something in the written thing than I do on the video, and my attention wanders quickly enough that videos normally take me 3 to 4 times. I mean, I watch them at like twice speed, but it may take me twice as long as the actual video to actually get the content from that because I have to go back and rewind because all of a sudden my attention's wandered, and 5 minutes later I'm like, wait, what happened? Um,
My attention doesn't wander. I just am deaf and I miss things.
so, but and that actually is my concern on that trend is some of us don't process the video information nearly as well as we do written, and most of the videos don't have a transcript. If it's got a
Well,
transcript, I do a much better job following. But yeah,
part of the
anyway,
technological advancement too has also resulted in us having all these touch screens. But if you're blind, uh, well, touch screens doesn't help you at all.
no,
no.
it's an absolute nightmare.
But um, so going completely off this topic, but onto another topic. So you have said are big differences between supers and powers, and you have your preference. And I still don't. I've
So,
never read. I've never read either of them because I don't like superhero
okay.
games all that much. So you'll have to explain the difference to me.
So here's the difference. Supers is focused on 4-color stuff,
Okay, and for
the 4-color
in
tropes.
the for the
Four
people in the
color is
comics,
like old comics. Like so, 4-color era was when they only could print in 4 colors. That was the ink that was available. That's original Superman, original Batman. That's like 1930s, 40s era.
Okay, but and I'm using 4-color more. This is comic book. This is storytelling stories that are like what you have in the comic books.
Mhm.
But Powers has a much wider application. I mean, yeah, you can adapt the stuff from Supers, but Supers talks about how to run a Supers game, and okay, I've got issues with some of the things it leaves out. But Powers is how do I make a power for the vampire bad guy, if that's what I want to do. Personally, I don't make powers for bad guys. I just say, yeah, he can do this. Yes, asymmetric rules, I'm all about it. Or how do I make it so that the new player in my game who's playing a druid and wants to do shape shifting rather than anything else for combat is able to do so and be effective against opponents that are tuned for the knight and the barbarian in their group that can cut through half-inch plate armor.
So I think I get
Normal.
what you're saying. You're basically saying the one is more oriented towards understanding if you come from a comics background, whereas the other one is more taking the comic concepts and putting them in gaming
Well,
terms. Is that what you're saying?
no. The powers is
you're saying
powers
it's
is
more
how
general,
do
right?
it's more general.
Okay.
So
It's
I'm thinking of Scion, which is not normally considered a superhero game by most people
mhm,
because really you're like someone with god blood in your genetics. So you basically you're Hercules. Like you have
mhm,
superpowers, but no one ever thinks of that as a superhero game.
yeah. Supers is for a superhero game. Powers
Okay.
is I want something that wasn't in the original basic set. How do I put together the things in the basic set in such a way that I get the result I want? It is
Okay.
the how do I make something that's not quite what was in the original thing that better fits what I'm looking for? That's what Powers is, and I
Hmm.
find it much more widely applicable. Um, Drew it in my dungeon fantasy game. Her shapeshifting is built from Powers, um, and uses impulse points. But Powers is the more generally applicable and doesn't have the kind of built-in expectation that we're talking about superheroes.
Okay, so
Could
for
be
someone like me that really isn't into superhero games, supers would be useless, but powers would still be.
Powers would be applicable. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Supers may not be useless, but it might be. It's one of those things where I've been to several writing conventions where they say if you want to research a subject, find the GURPS book on it. There's your primer. You don't have to know anything about the game. Find the GURPS book on it. There's your primer. Doesn't matter if you hate the game. It's probably the best primer out there. Which,
So
okay.
Tom Kane, who was on this show way back in the beginning, wrote GURPS China, and he wrote a bunch of others too. And somebody asked him what his favorite one was, and he said, "Well, I like GURPS China best because I went on to have an entire career writing books about China." And in large part, it was because of all the research he'd done to for GURPS China. So,
Well, yeah.
um, I do want to make sure that Tony gets enough time to cover his
Oh,
game. Um, but I think there are probably still some points to get covered. So, Are you in our Discord yet, Paul?
Am I? Oh,
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I
So if
am. I
anybody
am.
has any other GURPS questions for Paul, please make sure they get in the Discord.
Oh,
Um,
I did want to on here answer a question you asked ages ago on the previous one. Can you get disadvantage points for a mental illness? Absolutely. There are several already statted out, but yeah, totally.
so you can get disadvantage points if somebody shoots your parents. I think we were talking about Batman at the time, so.
outside the theater.
I saw a video the other day. It was like a short, where I don't know what it was from, but guys are in a restaurant and they're reading fortune cookies, and one of them's like, "You will commit a crime," and the other one's like, "You're going to be murdered." And he's like, "You're going to kill me? My son, I'm poor. My son can't become Batman. He's going to become Robin. He's going to become
Right?
Robin. See what you're going to do? You're going to make him Robin."
All right. Well, thank you very much. Tony, tell us about your
Hello.
game.
Okay, so the Realm of Guy and Enoch is post-apocalyptic fantasy, dark fantasy, very dark fantasy actually. Uses a D8 dice pool system with a very simple dice pool mechanic. We put difficulty on the end rather than on the die. So 1 to 4, no success. 5 to 8, 1 success. Count your successes, simple and easy, with an exploding mechanic on 8. And that's part of why we use D8s, because 6 is too common, 10's too a little bit too uncommon. 8, it gives you a lot of chances for that exploded success, which is actually a lot of fun. Huge players love it.
And it
Um,
also grabbed my attention because I had never heard of a D8 game before.
I have not either, and I've been playing for a really long time, and that was sort of kind of the point, because I wanted to do something not different just to be different, because that irritates me. But in this case, we're using D8s. It's thematic. Actually, the number 8 appears over and over again. You have 8 attributes. There is 8 skills per skill category. You re-roll an 8 in the exploded success. You only ever have to roll 8 dice maximum, and that's one of the things that I kind of went right off the bat when it came to dice pools, because I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure people have seen it, where like you have 27 dice in your dice pool, and you have this gigantic handful of dice, and it's kind of it becomes obnoxious. So we limit it to 8. Anything over 8 is automatically successful. Skews you towards a higher degree of success. So um, the higher your dice pool goes, the higher your level of success will go. But it makes it really easy, actually, on the players. But we've seen, especially in the playtesting, where that exploded success is really fun, particularly when you only have, say, 1 or 2 dice, and 1 or 2 dice turns into 4 or 5 successes. You turn what would be failure into some miraculous success. And it's not super uncommon. It's not rolling a 20 on a d20. I mean, it's 8. It's a 12.5% chance of hitting that. But we saw a player live, where it was about to take 3 damage, only had 1 die to soak, and soaked, rolled an 8, and then rolled another 8, and then rolled a 6, and soaked all 3. That was very exciting for them. So that's one of the 3 core rules. 3 core rules are: no matter what your dice pool penalties are, players are always entitled to roll at least 1 die, because you're a hero, and there's a chance. 8s explode. That's the second rule. And then any dice over 8 in your dice pool are automatically successful. So if you roll, say your dice pool is 10, and you're going to roll your 8 dice, you're just going to add 2 automatic successes to it, instead of continuously rolling bigger piles of dice. Because the math of that is, the more dice you roll, the closer you get to average. If they're each 50% chance of success, if you're rolling 20 dice, chances are you're going to get 10, not 20. It'd be very hard for you to get 20. But if you are rolling, say you have 20 dice in your dice pool, but you're getting 12 of those automatic, you're rolling 8 dice plus 12 automatic. That's going to skew you towards, I have a lot of skill and I have a lot of natural ability. I can do, whatever thing. Because it's fantasy, it's built on the concept that nothing is impossible. Some things are just merely very improbable. So if I tell you it's going to take 10 successes to jump over a pit and you have 6 dice, it's possible. It's not probable, but it is possible that you can do it. And we've seen that in playtesting where, crits with a bow and does 17 damage because you just kept rolling more 8s on top of it. And that's very satisfying to the players. They have the huge heroic thing that they do. In terms of character creation, I like standard array. I don't like rolling up characters. We did that back in the 80s. We're just going to give you a standard array of attributes. We're going to give you a standard array of skills. We're going to give you a standard array of backgrounds. Spend them how you want. You have 8 attributes. I should point out that the average is 2. The average person has a 2 in an attribute. You're going to make 3 of those 3, and you're going to make 3 of those 2, and you're going to make 2 of those 1. So you're going to be above average in 3 attributes. You're going to be just average in 2, and you're going to be below average in or 3, and then you're going to be below average in 2 of them. So you're going to have some flaws. Everybody has them. And then you're going to build your character however you want. Just follow the steps in the process. Are you going to choose a calling? You're going to choose a heritage. You're going to choose your apotheos. The apotheos is what makes you a hero. But you are more in this apocalyptic world. You are far and away above the average person. You've been blessed or gifted with the power of the ancients, and you are what's standing against this horrible apocalyptic landscape.
So you said it's super dark. What in particular makes it? I mean, it when you describe the actual running of the game, it sounds like it's weighted in favor of the players. So what specifically makes it
It has to be
darker
because
than say like Cult?
imagine a world where 95% of people just got massacred and wiped out, right? Most people are gone. And the world is just teeming with monstrosities. Horrible, horrible monstrosities. And they're everywhere. And you've been gifted this ability to kind of stand up against it, where the average person can't. The average person just goes out and dies. There's not a lot they can do. So you have all these abilities and these things that you can do, which make you a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not like the classic, again, going back to like comic books, not like the Superman complex hero. You're still you, right? You're still living in this world. We're going to explore that narratively. What does it mean to be a hero? Where you have this ability, right? You've been gifted this thing, but what do you do with it? Do you do anything with it? You don't have to. I mean, you have, it's a story-based system. You don't, if you don't want to help people, you don't have to. No one's forcing you to. But the world's not going to get better on its own. In fact, it's going to get far worse. Where in the setting in Enoch, civilization and society just barely survived, and not by much. And it's not something that happened far in the past. It's not something that happened decades or centuries ago. It literally just happened. You're 6 months in, 6 months into the apocalypse. And now you've got to figure out, like, how do I feed myself? And how do I, you know what I mean? How do I, like, I want to go to another town, but like the wilderness is a horrible place full of, all sorts of, ravagers and abominations and all these horrible creatures. How do I survive that? And still, you're still you. You're still, you're still living your life. It's almost like, you don't become something different just because you were gifted this amazing abilities that your character has. You know, you're still whoever you are. You're just something else.
Morgan wants to know if it's Eldritch type stuff.
Sort of. Yeah. You have things called anathema creatures. The anathema is a virus that's spread around the world, and it mutates whatever it comes in contact with into something horrible. Like wolves turn into ravagers, and people turn into abominations. Um, all kinds of things, as many as you could possibly think of. It's really designed that way. If you can take a thing and apply the anathema to it, it becomes bigger, more ferocious. You know, imagine a giant mutant crocodile. Sure, you can make that. You can have that be one of your enemies. Um, One thing that's kind of important to note is that this is not dungeon crawling. We're not. We're using the idea of combat narratively. Um, it's things that make sense in the story, not just like, hey, there happens to be this mine that you go into, and this room has 2 ogres in it, and that one has some bats, and you know what I mean. We want simple role playing, but interesting tactical combat. So we kind of limit it. I don't say we limit it that way, but we narratively devise it that way. In the first scenario, there's 2 combat situations in the first act. Um,
Is this designed to be used with minis or mind's eye more?
You could do both.
Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I have put out some resources if you want to use minis. They're printable. They're essentially free. Scale minis. I understand that not everybody has $11,700 to buy every mini that they want. So we've made some printable tokens, printable map. If you want to run it that way. Um, the maps themselves are to scale. They're to 1-inch scale. So if the map pack has everything that you need, you just got to you just print it out if you want to. But I made a conscious decision to separate the products into smaller downloadable pieces for, again, the trend of not everybody wants to be a GM, right? So if you're going to buy a book, I'd rather the book just have the things that you need to play the game, rather than 10 pages of printed maps and printable tokens. And you know what I mean? All of those things, even like pre-made characters. It's a very simple thing to just go on drive-through and just click download. Be like, I want the maps downloaded. There they are. I have them. Um, with what we're seeing with the price of printing going up, I don't want to put you in a position where you have to buy the 200-page book when you really only needed 100. Where you're paying the extra whatever dollars for things that you're not going to run. With the idea that there will be a full deluxe version of that for people who want it. So if you want to buy the full printed 250 pages, sure. I mean, there's always a market for it. I'm that person, right? I want to buy that. But not everybody does.
Is this going to be strictly PDF, or is this going to be available in book form at any point?
It will be. There's a whole process behind this. So digital PDF is really easy to update, and we're still playtesting right now. So if I make a change to a PDF, I just click upload again. And after I say, okay, I changed the range of this from 6 meters to 10 meters, right? I just change it. I put it in the notes. I upload. Everybody gets it. All the 100 people that bought it, whatever, they all get it. We only get one chance to do it right in print, though. So before we print it, we really want to make sure that it's done. And I hate the idea of when companies do we'll just fix it later.
Yeah, I refer to that as the video game method these days.
Right. I don't want to do that. But at
We're
least
going to release it broken and just fix it later on.
Especially with like a pay what you want product on drive-through, where I'm essentially giving it to you for free. I mean, if you want to throw me some money, that would be great. But it's essentially free, right? But if I can say, okay, well, 150 people have downloaded this. I made X, Y, and Z change, put it in the patch notes, send it off to them. Here's the new version. It didn't necessarily cost you anything. But if you want it in book form, I mean, I can't give that away for free.
Exactly.
That costs money. I can give digital. I mean, people ask me all the time. I mean, and I'm going to put it. I'm going to put a discount coupon in the comments when the video posts. You want 50% off? Sure. It's digital. I can do that. I can't absorb the print cost of a 100-page book to give it to you for free.
Mhm.
No.
I don't have unlimited resources. I wish I did, but I don't. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean that totally makes sense. I'm a big fan of I like to read. I'm a big fan of physical books.
mhm,
And so I always like if something is going to be available in book form at some point, that is always my preference.
mhm. And
Um,
I went back and forth on, and there's some requirements that a place like Drive Through has. You can't just upload a book, right? It doesn't really work like that. You need to be verified. You need to be certified. They're not going to print off books for people who aren't selling enough digital copies of things. So
mhm,
there's a couple hurdles I have to get over, but um, I don't know if it's necessary to have a physical book of like the solo scenario. I mean, it's 31 pages. Literally it's designed for a beginner. So you just sit down and you go through the story. It
mhm.
explains the game mechanics. It explains dice rolling, and everything about your character. I don't think that we really need to print that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean so I've recently been reading a lot of Shadow Dark stuff.
okay.
And they have a lot of one-shot short adventures, and those I can like buy and print out and keep them in a binder.
Hmm.
But if you've got, a 100, 200, 300, 400 page book, I'm not going to print that out.
Yep.
Nor do I have a binder big enough, so I want to buy
Well,
the
and
bound
I
book.
wouldn't want you to because that's obnoxious. So the core rules, which is in playtest version 2.8 right now, is almost done. Right, I actually sent it off to be looked at the first half of it. So that will be available in soft cover.
Hmm.
That's a little too short for a hardcover. 100 pages isn't that long. Um, but we trimmed it down so it's just what you need to get started. It's not the whole system. It's what you need for tier one
So,
content, mark
so
one through
like
five.
quick start rule kind of things, or
Well, the rules are always going to be quick start. I don't want you to spend a lot of time. I mean, I want you to look at it and I want you to get your character concept and I want you to go through the steps in character creation. It's detailed simplicity, right? The mechanics are easy and doing it is easy. There's a lot of detail in the options of things that you could choose, but choosing them is easy,
hmm
right? Um, when you say like, okay, there's 4 heritage choices in the core rules. Now, really, there's 16, but there's 4 in the core rules because again, analysis paralysis is a thing, right? If I tell you there's 16 callings and there's 5 backgrounds and there's 16 heritage choices and there's 16 aspects, and your brain just goes, whoa, I don't know what to choose. It's not that big of a deal. Your heritage is not a huge deal. It's more role playing flair than anything. It's akin to your race, but it's not. I don't love that word, especially being an American. The connotation is fairly negative. So you have a lineage and a heritage. Choose your calling. There's 8 choices. When you choose your calling, it's going to give you an aspect. It's going to say, okay, you chose calling of honor, and it's going to give you mastery. And here are the 4 things that you can do right out of the gate. Um, and what we've noticed, and this is something that I've noticed as over time, is that gaming groups break up like kids in middle school, right? One day you're running a session and everything's great, and then 2 weeks later somebody's car broke down and they got to go to their daughter's piano recital, and all of a sudden you don't have the game anymore. So right from the get go, right out of the box, I want characters ready to play. I want you to be able to go. Like no slow build up, no, 3 or 4 sessions in, you're starting to level up a little. I want that level to be very high right out of the gate. And we've seen that in playtesting where um, we took 4 characters and I put them against 2 Minotaurs and 14 Harpies, and they survived, which was
hmm
great. 6 Abominations and 4 Ravagers all at the same time. Great. Very, very I laughed because I was on a old school Discord, an OSR kind of Discord, and if you like leave comments, it levels you up. And I got to level 2, And I was like, oh, good, I could fight 2 kobolds now. You know, like I'll still probably die though. But yeah, I don't. I want the players to be able to sit down, use one of the pre-made characters, and go. Right? There's 8 of them, 8 pre-made characters, 1 for each calling. Hand you a character sheet, and bam, we play. Count the number of dice that you're going to roll. Roll them. Tell me how many successes you got. And it's not any more difficult than that.
Okay. Does our chat have any questions? I know Morgan's been very excited about the the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Could you be Van Helsing? Sure. Some of them, it's see. This is why I say it's pretty dark. Some of the callings are not exactly what you would think of as heroic. I mean, if you chose aggression or profanity, um, that's on the darker side. It's on the much darker side. You know, if you chose profanity, you're going to get sacrilege as your aspect. You're going to get a whole bunch of shadow type, torment. Uh, you get a deafen. You get agony. You get anguish. You get
You're going to be
cruelty.
Snape.
Darker than that. Far darker than that.
Okay,
Um,
you're gonna be Book Snape.
right. I can see that. But like aggression, you know, I mean, you're all about going out and, you know, doing the thing, and your abilities reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that there aren't the sort of more heroic trope issues. You know, if you chose piety or you chose honor or you chose valor, you know, that's more along the lines of the classic hero. But that's your option as a player. If you want to choose, you know, there's no alignment at all. There's no alignment system. There's no virtue system. Um, you know, there's the kind of contrived notions of, you know, good versus evil. Actually, spoiler, the words good and evil don't appear in the text at all. They're on the naughty list of words not to use. Because it's boring. It's boring storytelling. There's the good guys and the bad guys. There's worse guys and better guys and sort of okay guys, but no real good guys. It's the apocalypse. Nobody has it. You know, nobody's having a great time in the apocalypse. So sometimes good people do bad things to survive, and sometimes bad people
The
do
moral
good things.
compass is a bit on the broken side.
Well,
Well,
right.
it's a little bit like a lot of the ideas in The Walking Dead that, you know, the people who were good are the ones that get killed off the fastest.
Well, right. I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You know, if you want to get through this, you know, it's like it's kind of like the old trope of, you know, the sparing your enemies. No, they're coming back. I mean, I'm gonna kill my enemies in the apocalypse because I can't take any chances.
Right. So,
There's no prison to put them in either. There's not a lot of authority and not a lot of society. So, you know,
uh, have you read or are you familiar with the War Against the Couture series?
I am not.
Okay. Modern setting, but yeah, basically it starts out with over the course of about a year and a half, 19 out of 20 people die.
Yeah, that's
And
that.
and you know there's some of the commentary in the book is everyone left is walking wounded. No one who survived got through without taking some type of trauma.
Well, we go
Some
through
type.
that in creating your character background because there's 8
Mhm.
essential questions, and one of them is, first of all, how did you survive? How did you survive the apocalypse? What
Yep.
did you do to survive? And 2, who did you lose? Because everybody lost somebody.
Yeah.
Because most people didn't make it. Was it your parents? Was it you know what I mean? Like, are you lucky enough to have somebody still around?
Yeah.
But
I mean, if the survival rate, some background here. I've got a big family,
Mhm.
and my father's an identical twin with the same sized family, and we all kind of line up. With a survival rate of 1 in 20, if I live, nobody else does
right.
in my family,
Well,
and that's
it's
kind of horrifying. And
it's
I'm glad that's part of the character creation there because
oh, absolutely. And we talk about it's actually, we say 95%, but it's actually somewhere between 90 and 100, because there are some places that just don't exist anymore. It's entire countries, they're just not there. Everybody's gone, you know? Um, and
We're
you get to like where these survivors have all come together, and this is one of the ideas that we're going to talk about, like in the setting, is that like everybody used to kind of be enemies. There's a lot of animosity between nations and peoples and all of this, and now you have all these people stuck together that are like, I guess I don't hate you that much anymore, because I think personally that you would find in an apocalyptic setting that a lot of stereotypes and prejudices would just go right away. Like, hey, I need somebody to watch my back, and I don't like you for whatever reason, but I need you. Like, I'm all alone, you know. So yeah, you see a lot of that, but yeah, we're going to narratively get into that, and again, that's where I have to be a little bit sensitive in the writing, is that there's a lot of things that I shouldn't say and that I can't say, just because prying eyes are watching, and you only get one chance to do it right. Um, we went the first page, right? If you look at the core rules, first page goes through standards of what we're going to talk about and what we're not going to talk about. And I'm sorry we're breaking one of your rules here, but we're
I only
not
have
going to,
one rule, so that's scary.
but we're not going to talk about uh, violence against young children, right? We're not going to include sexual violence. We're not going to include hate speech against the LGBTQTIA community. We're not going to include any content that involves real life prejudices, right? It's important. You have to do that, right? Because we're going to preface this by saying there's going to be murder, and there's going to be torture, and there's going to, you know what I mean? But it won't be because of any of these reasons, right? If your character gets captured and tortured, it's not because they're gay, right? It's just
What about
because
the
that
what
diet.
about what about vegans? We mentioned
Um,
that was
I
backstage
mean,
too. Are we
vegans
I
allowed?
die
mean,
anyway because their diets are too limited.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
I
yeah.
don't know if you would survive in the apocalypse as a vegan, but I mean, cue the hate speech. I'm sure people
Yeah,
are going to come
they're
out and
just like walking around like, "Hey, is this dead carcass gluten free?" Just like,
No, 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 no. On the other hand, they are the closest thing we will get to grass fed. So, when we
they
hit
probably
that
taste
stage,
better. Yeah, no,
they're going to taste a lot better.
I mean, the apocalyptic zombies would probably want to eat vegans more because they would, taste better without all the with all the impurities. But no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I went back and forth when we were writing about corpus regeneration. Corpus is like your health, and I had to edit the text on what constituted a hearty meal, because you if you eat a hearty meal and rest, you gain more back.
Hmm.
I had to take out, because people got mad. I had to take out any mention of meat, and I had to, because people were getting all upset that that's not. I'm a vegetarian. That's, what do you mean? I have to eat blah 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 blah. And I was like, fine. You know what? I'm just gonna call it nutritious food and beverage, and
See, you're
move on.
nicer to me. I would have said, too bad, move on.
Yeah, but I mean, at
Because
some
it's
point,
it's real it's realistic. The point is that if you did not have, vitamins from the grocery store and limited food source, the whole reason we started eating meat as a species is because it's a very
right?
densely
it's
nutritious.
it's it
It's
is
calorie dense.
concentrated nutrition and calories.
Yeah, calorie dense food. You have to eat lots and lots and lots of grain to equal one pork chop.
So, being a compulsive researcher, I did have to look this up. That still leaves us with a population of about 400 million, and we could get down to about 30,000 before we hit minimum viable population.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, this goes from about there's about 2 million people in Enoch before the apocalypse.
I'm
So
sorry, say that again.
there were about 2 million before the apocalypse, and 95% of them are gone. So
Why were we down to 2 million before the apocalypse?
this is
Because
fantasy.
that's the setting.
It's
Oh,
not
now
the
I'm
real world.
curious.
Enoch, not
Now I'm
not
curious
the
now.
world.
Oh no, it's not the real world. It's the fantasy world. So the continent of Enoch, it's pure fantasy.
That's
Pure
really
high
low
fantasy.
for like humanity and under anything though. That's interesting, huh?
Yep, 2 million down 95%. So there's like what 100,000 people left. That's not that many. I mean, that's a small city in the United States.
Yeah.
I think it's a large city in my state.
Well, I'm from
Yeah.
Connecticut,
And
the capital.
if they're spread out over different continents, you might be below minimum viability.
They're clustered into small groups. Like I said, some places the death toll is 100%. Like everybody's just gone. There's actually a lot of them. The whole middle is everyone's just gone.
Success. Good. Yes. Very good.
Um, but yeah, so I guess it does kind of go thematically with it's just a darker version of superhero because you are much more than the average person, far and away. You can survive things they can't. You can heal from things that they can't. You can do things that they can't. Magic doesn't exist for regular people. It's just not a thing. They just don't have it. But you can use your aspects to do things like heal and fireball and those standard fantasy things that if you want to arcane blast something you can, but the average person can't, which is why they need you.
So is the idea that like these are the people that are evolved to survive this?
No, they have that's again that goes to the backstory. The power of the ancients. The world was going to die, so they've lent you their aid to prevent that from happening. They have no physical form. You are their physical form.
Hmm.
Now, there's a narrative question as to why, and I don't answer that question. Actually, it's not answered anywhere. Why me? Like, what is so special about me, as opposed to somebody else standing right next to me? Well, we're gonna get into that in the story. What is it about me that makes me special? And also, you see a lot of this in some of the superhero type stuff, where there's a little bit of resentment in some people that you're special and I'm not. Like, what what's wrong with me? Like it's lonely being a hero sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody understands who you are. Nobody understands what you can do. You know, they just don't because they're not you. They don't have, I would do this if I were you, but you're not me. I'm me, you know?
Morgan had I think, a good question a while back. Any lore or fiction?
Yes, actually. I actually have written a whole bunch of it. There's some fiction that I want somebody else to write because I don't really, there's only so much that I can do. Like
Mm-hmm.
realistically, there's only so much I want to do, right? Because it's kind of an irony here is that like this is a people based business, 100% all people based. It's not anything else. It's just people. So why would I want to do it all by myself? Why I would like other people to write the stories and give me kind of their take on it. I think to see what they understand and what they, uh, you know, if it's too much just from me, it becomes too narrow and it becomes too directed into the way that I want it to go. But I think letting other people, do their thing, and that's where we're going to go with playtesting. Is that I made pre-made characters for playtesting, but we're not going to use those to playtest the scenario. I want everybody to make their own. That's this next step. That's version 3.0, which is going to come out very shortly. I'm 37 pages into self-editing, which anyone that has written before knows that like you can't edit yourself.
Oh,
It
I'm so glad you
defies
said that.
it defies the concept of having an editor.
I'm so glad you said that. I was about to be in serious pain because I've seen self-edited.
No, like you can proofread, right? Because like I don't want to send the editor something that's just hot garbage, right? Bad plurality,
I also
possessive.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you know what I mean? Like, and I make mistakes when I change things because I'm so focused on the thing that I changed that I forget that. Like, perfect example: Fireball has a radius of 6 meters. a 6 meter radius, right? I changed that to an 8. A 8 meter radius. Don't change the A to an an. It's an 8 meter radius, not a 8 meter radius. That's a simple, dumb mistake that I made. That's a real world example of that, because something got changed. But my editor doesn't need to do that for me. I should have caught that mistake and fixed it so that he can worry about content and conciseness. You know, does it make sense? It can be grammatically correct and still not make sense.
You are still an editor's dream. Um, so I have to wrap this up because we are at 8 o'clock.
Sure.
Once again, the Discord link will be open for everyone. So if people have questions about these games, hopefully these gentlemen will bop in and you can ask them those questions.
Okay.
And let us quickly, Dark Hour, tell us where you're going to be, what's coming up for you, what events you got going.
So I should have a video releasing tomorrow, my final Daredevil coverage video. It's kind of delayed, but no one really cared about the show anyway. I'm just doing it for closure purposes. Then I'm switching gears right into Thunderbolts, then probably taking a short break, just doing my 2 host thing for a little while, which you will be on the next one when we're doing Karate Kid on the 11th of next month. I guess we're not
Good
in
Lord, we're
May yet.
already that far along in the
Yeah.
year, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. And then I'm not really sure after that yet. Just probably gonna I just go with the flow basically.
All right. Paul, do you have events or anything you'd like to plug or social media you'd
Actually,
like
I
to plug?
do want to plug something. I didn't get to mention this, but this is the next product from Gaming Ballistic. It's slated for sometime this year. Basically, the same sort of treatment for modern role playing, modern action role playing. Think Stargate, Aliens, XCOM, Old Man's War. The same sort of fast to the table and fast at the table that I discussed for Delvers to Grow,
Hmm.
but for modern
I wonder
Europe
how many
space
people are
gaming.
familiar with Old Man's War.
I don't know. I don't know, but
It's a
a
great book.
couple of
Stop not
couple of
reading and go read it.
yes, it's worth reading. But Stargate, SG-1, Aliens, XCOM, that type of thing. Very much intended to be fast at the table, fast to the table.
Nice.
I did provide a link for that. I can provide that again. I'm on Blue Sky and Dice Camp. Most of what I post there is session reports or blatherings about political or medical stuff. So, if that's the sort of content you want, great, follow me. If you don't want that content, well, maybe don't.
Then hang out with him on Discord.
Yeah.
All right. Tony, what have you got coming up?
Uh, we are just about to roll into live scenario playtesting, and then I'm going to roll that out to the general public in beta. So once that scenario goes through, I'm going to give it to everybody else to playtest. Core rules is basically done, so we're going to bundle that all together: map pack, gallery of horrors, core rules, and intro scenario, which is called Shadows of the Dusk. And then we put that all together and then hopefully crowdfund by the summer.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have already placed it or not, but the Discord does have a I'm looking for playtesters section. So
Okay.
if you hit that point where you need people that are completely unfamiliar with your
I would love that. Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And I am the Eclectic Goat. I am on Twitter and Discord and here under those names. We also now have the Eclectic Herd so that everyone can stay in touch with the creators that we have on this show, the panelists we have on this show, and find out more about what's going on in their projects and new projects. I am very passionate about making sure that everyone gets a chance to create as they can. I think it's much more useful to support creators than to complain about the people who are currently creating. um, so I really love the indie movement. We got a few
Awesome.
suggestions on the RAM name for today, so hopefully by let's say, the end of day next Tuesday, if we hit 100 watch hours on this video, then we will be voting next week on the varying names. So all of you who want to upset Eraserhead, make sure you drag people into the chat to vote for Pineapple, and Eraser, make sure you drag everyone else in here to vote against it.
Rammy McRamface.
It is on the list. I have it on the list.
Rammy McRamface. That should be the name.
I second that.
We have Pineapple, we have Rammy McRamface, we have Crossbow, Ramses, Horny Harry. I probably cannot get past the registry. We probably can't do that one.
No.
Nah, I think you could.
But
We have-
Hornball Harry. There we go.
That I could do. We have Butthead.
But it's going to be Rammy McRamface, so it doesn't matter. All these are they're all shooting for second right now.
I don't even know how to pronounce the one that Eraserhead put in, so he's going to have to tell me. And then Hornapoopus, I think, is the one that our favorite bear suggested. Racer has said, "I'll block all of you pineapple heathens." All right. I want to thank everyone for coming. Chat and panel, it has been wonderful as always. And we will be, let's see, I don't think I am doing anything else for the rest of the week. I'm too busy taking road trips to pick up more goats because, that's totally what I need in my life is
You need
more goats.
all the goats. You need every goat.
I support that.
Yes, I need all the goats. I mean, there's only 2,000 of them, so if I wait long enough, I can probably gather them all up. Yeah, after that, I think I am down to just this as a live stream. So, I did want to say, man, I almost forgot the important one. I got a package in the mail today. So, I was sent these to review by Weird Games. I also have a PDF copy of their core rules. So at some point, as soon as I can barrel through all of them, I am going to be doing a review on these. It'll be my first review video. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll have that coming up.
Wonderful.
All right. And on that note, I hope that everyone has a great night and happy headbutting.
Thank you.
Meet me at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to gab with you. We'll talk about immersion, adventure heavy lows, characters and story, warlocks and barbarians and bards, comedy or horror. We got inspiration if you're in need of it or just need to hang out somewhere cozy. We're the guys for you, we've got time for you. Come and join the crew, here's what to do. Meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards. meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards.